So, Google messed up. Big time. Google's getting sued. Google used a black deaf worker to tout its diversity. Now she's suing for discrimination. Apologies in advance if I mispronounce names. Jalon Hall was featured on Google's corporate social media accounts for making #LifeAtGoogle more inclusive. She says the company discriminated against her on the basis of her disability and race. Hall thought she was being scammed when a recruiter reached out on LinkedIn about a job moderating YouTube videos in 2020. Once after earning a master's degree in criminal justice, her only job had been at a law firm investigating discrimination cases. But the offer was real, and Hall, who was black and deaf, sailed through the interviews. Master's degree in criminal justice. Hell yeah. She would be part of a new in-house moderation team of about 100 people called Ring, drudging daily through freezing weather to offices in suburban Detroit during the early pandemic. When she accepted the job, the recruiter said via email that a sign language interpreter would be provided and can be fully accommodated. Smiley face. That assurance unraveled within days of joining Google, and her experience at the company has proven difficult in the years since. For the record, to all employers, you are legally required to provide a sign language interpreter. For private businesses, it can be a little more tricky with the law, but for big public businesses, especially if you're Google, is there a little section of the ADA that makes it tricky when it's smaller businesses? I know I had issues with therapist, which is not the same thing, but anyhow. Hall now works on responsible use of AI at Google, and by all available accounts is the company's first and only black deaf employee. The company has feted her at events and online as representative of a workplace welcoming to all. Google's LinkedIn account praised her last year for helping expand opportunities for black deaf professionals, while on Instagram the company thanked her for making #LifeAtGoogle more inclusive. Yet behind the rosy marketing, Hall accuses Google of subjecting her to both racism and autism, prejudice against the deaf or hard of hearing. She says the company denied her access to a sign language interpreter and slow-walked upgrades to essential tools. I am not fully aware of what slow-walked upgrades to essential tools means, but the denying a sign language interpreter, I'm not surprised by. This is very common. I can't even be shocked that companies like Google would end up doing this. I have a friend who works at Amazon currently that has had issues with interpreters. Most recently, anyway, right now, is just that interpreters end up not showing up or they canceled or something. But I have had issues where people, this is like at events, like at conferences and stuff, where the event will try to ask me if I really need an interpreter or captions, and it's very annoying. And me having a job interview on Tuesday, I was a little bit worried about that, but my friend offered to work pro bono for the interpreter or for the interview. But eventually I'm gonna have to get down to that part of the whole thing where I'm gonna have to tell them, hey, just so you know, we have meetings or whatever, we're gonna need an interpreter, and that's gonna be on you all. After filing 3 HR complaints that she says yielded little change, Hall sued Google in December, alleging discrimination based on her race and disability. The company responded this week, arguing that the case should be thrown out on procedural grounds, including bringing the claims too late, but didn't deny Hall's accusations. Google is using me to make them look inclusive for the deaf community and the overall disability community, she says. In reality, they need to do better. That kind of bothers me. The company responds saying that the case should be thrown out because she has been bringing the claims too late. Bringing the claims to HR too late, or suing too late? I mean, this woman has tried 3 times. I mean, I don't know when she's filed them, but see, I've never had to deal with an HR before. All of my employment has mostly been contract, self-employed stuff. So I'm my boss, kind of, until I get hired. Then they're kind of my boss, the contract people, the people giving me the contract. But still, okay, so I don't have an HR department to talk to. I just talk to them, and it's more one-on-one. But what do you mean that the case should be thrown out because the claims were too late? That doesn't seem right. That doesn't really make much sense to me. But also, you didn't deny what she's accusing you of, so you know you've done something that you shouldn't have been doing. Hall, who is in her 30s, has stayed at Google in hopes of spurring improvements for others. She chose to talk with Wired despite fearing for her safety and job prospects because she feels the company has ignored her. I was born to push through hard times. It would be selfish to quit Google. I'm staying in the gap for those often pushed aside. Hall's experiences, which have not been previously reported, are corroborated by over 24 internal documents seen by Wired, as well as interviews with 4 colleagues she has confided in and worked alongside. I'm so curious to know who, because I know some people at Google. And I get it. Deaf people are underemployed. We are unemployed quite often. This is a stat that it's everywhere on the internet, okay? It's a fact. So I understand wanting to stay with Google even though they're doing this nonsense, because at least we have a job, right? And if she quits Google, which is like already like high on the job poll here, who's to say that she's gonna have another job? How long is that gonna take? I mean, yeah, she's got a master's degree in criminal justice. Maybe she could have gone back to that old job. I don't know. I don't know how easily that occurs, like how easy it is to go back and get your old job. But if you gotta start over in the job searching department, it's gonna be pretty damn difficult. Yes, lots of deaf people do have jobs and they work for companies, mainstream companies, or whatever. Whether it's like retail positions or like, I don't know, stuff that is like really high on the position poll. What am I saying? There are lots of deaf people who work many positions, high, low, whatever the hell you want to refer them as. But at the same time, again, many of us, there's still a large percentage of disabled people in general that are unemployed and underemployed. It's gonna depend on how inclusive the company really is, where you are, etc., etc. Who you know is also just as important. It's just like with the hearing folk. Who you know can really come into play into things like this. But also there's a thing of, I say this a lot with people that are like, why don't you just move out of such and such state if you hate how things are there? If you leave something, then there's no way you're trying to make change in that something. Well, I guess maybe you still could, but like changes in North Carolina are very hard to come by. Politics in North Carolina weren't so great. I mean, it's in the South. But I didn't necessarily leave North Carolina because of that. Because I ended up moving to frickin' Nebraska. I ended up moving to Omaha, Nebraska, where things aren't really that much better politically. And I know that there are people here that have moved out of Nebraska because they want to go to somewhere that's more inclusive, more accessible, etc., etc. But, okay, y'all have left, but now who's going to stay here and work on trying to change things? So, hi, here I am, and here other people are too. So that same type of thing, you can use that argument, and we're talking about jobs as well. And I've had contract jobs where like things needed to change and I considered leaving right in the middle of it because things were so bad and they didn't seem to realize it. But things weren't going to get finished. Things weren't maybe possibly going to change if somebody wasn't going to tell them, hey, stop doing that. Although maybe actually in some cases leaving would have been better because then they would have had to scramble. But anyhow. Employees who are black or disabled are in tiny minorities at Google, a company of nearly 183,000 people that has long been criticized for an internal culture that heavily favors people who fit tech industry norms. Google's deaf and hard of hearing employee group has 40 members, and black women, who make up only about 2.4% of Google's U.S. workforce, leave the company at a disproportionately higher rate than women of other races. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them for staying. I don't blame them for leaving. It's complicated. And yeah, even at the end of the day, these companies that say they are more inclusive or they're wanting to work on inclusivity, that may be true, but there's still going to be like a group of people in that company, usually the ones at the very, 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 very top who make all that money, the CEOs and stuff, who don't really care about that type of thing. And what ends up happening is the people who care about inclusivity get screwed over, like Elon Musk and Twitter. Several former black women employees, including AI researcher Timnit Gebru and recruiter April Christina Curley, have publicly alleged they were sidelined by an internal culture that disrespected them. Curly is leading a proposed class action lawsuit accusing Google of systemic bias, but has lost initial court battles. That sucks. I wonder why. I mean, I can guess why, but I'd like to see it on paper. Google spokesperson Emily Hawkins didn't directly address Hall's allegations when asked about them by Wired. We are committed to building an inclusive workplace and offer a range of accommodations to support the success of our employees, including sign language interpreters and captioning. Okay, so why was Miss Hall here having to put in 3 HR complaints and then sue you because of the lack of ASL interpreters and amongst other things? Because remember, this was starting to unravel, and what was starting to unravel? You saying that she was going to get ASL interpreters and be fully accommodated with this and that and whatever. Figuring out how to accommodate people like Hall could be good business for Google. They already know how to do it. Come on, they created Live Transcribe, for crying out loud, which is, in my opinion, the best live captioning thing to occur in the tech space right now. And even then, if you don't know exactly, because accessibility will never be 100% accessible, I say this often because 2 deaf people standing beside each other will have different access needs. Likely so. Deaf, blind people, low vision, visually impaired, whatever, wheelchair users, things will never be 100% accessible because it's just so different. There's so many options. But if you don't know, you can still ask the people specifically when they work for you. Mark Takana, who represents a slice of Southern California in the U.S. House and co-chairs the Congressional Deaf Caucus, says that Google has an obligation to lead the way in demonstrating that its technology and employment practices are accommodating. Thank you, Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. When deaf and hard of hearing employees are excluded because of the inability to provide an accessible workplace, there is a great pool of talent that is left untapped, and we all lose out. And already I know people are going to come in and say that Google doesn't have to do this and that, and y'all can just, or we all can just go and have the government help us out, which living on disability and such is practically nothing, especially now. It was already difficult enough way back when. It's even more difficult now with inflation and everything going on. But also, do we look like we just want to sit around all day? No. Why do you think why do you think some of us went to college? Why do you think some of us trained ourselves and got trained in other places to be able to do these things? Because we want to do them. And Google can afford to get these accommodations. Chump change in comparison. And then the rest of it talks about her, like, personally in her life growing up. I will have the article linked down below if you want to read the rest of that. Let me pretend to be shocked. I mean, listen, I like Google products. I like their phones. I like their Live Transcribe. That Live Transcribe is going to be my ride or die because, quite frankly, Apple's captions are abysmal. They are abysmal. They're terrible. But unfortunately, I can't be surprised that stuff like this is going to happen. It doesn't matter if it's Apple. It doesn't matter if it's Google. Like, yes, they have all these products and softwares that help with accessibility, and that's great. I love that, and I also use Apple products on a regular basis. In fact, that's what I'm reading off of right now. It's my ecosystem for work. But at the end of the day, you're still gonna find people that just don't actually really care, which is unfortunate. They care about what accessibility will make them, because that means that they get us as customers, we get them money, they make more money. And then a lot of us are like loyal to certain brands. They get more money. And that's what they care about. Rather than actually being moral about it, ethically. Rather than, what? I'm coming out of a weeks-long depression slump, and the English vocabulary is not working with me right now. I've also been talking for hours on end at meetings and work and stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, these people just really like money. There are people that work there that I know, that I love, that really do actually care about this stuff, and a lot of stuff is also out of their hands because they're down here and the CEOs and whoever else are up here and they're stuck. So they can scream all they want to, but the CEOs down here are like, okay, be quiet, Timmy. It's unfortunate. Which is very unfortunate, and I'd love to see that change, as do a lot of people. Anyhow, so we shall see what the update is on that, because as far as I am aware, reading this, the case is still ongoing. It hasn't actually been thrown out by any court. It's just that Google says that they think that it should be because everything came too late. Anyhow, let me know what your thoughts are on the matter down below. For more disability awareness stuff, I write about stuff and articles and things like that. Just getting more content out of me, book stuff, etc. Consider supporting the work that I do by becoming a Patreon member. And that is for as low as $1 a month. I will have that link down below. Or you can consider becoming a channel member. But if you're not into commitment, if you are scared of commitment, don't I know it? There is also a super thanks down here somewhere, so you can leave a little tip if you would like. Subscribe if you have not yet. Would love to have you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I very much appreciate it, as does the Sleeping Zane. And I will see you later. Bye. Oh, he's awake. Oh no, I woke him up.